Inflation returns. Now, you've probably been seeing some of the news stories about the recent rise in inflation, but I thought that it might be helpful to actually go back and look at where inflation has been over the last 5 years, because if you're like me, you probably memory hold all of this, and I think it's helpful to see the numbers. So back in 2020, when we were in COVID, inflation was at 1.2%. By the next year, 2021, inflation rose quite a bit. It averaged 4.7% across the year, and it hit 7% in December of 2021. Now, inflation peaked in June of 2022 at 9.1%. And since 2022, the Fed has spent a lot of time trying to wrangle inflation. And for all of us, that means interest rates have continued to increase with a few exceptions. So as of April 2025, inflation was brought back down. It was 2.3% in April. Unfortunately, in June of this year, inflation crept back up to 2.7%. So that's the highest amount in 4 months. And that made a lot of people really nervous. The reason being that the driver of inflation is tariffs. And this comes from a host of economists, including folks at the Council of Foreign Relations. The challenge is that prices have already started to creep up. So cars, clothing, shoes, electronics, food, all of those are more expensive. And the cost of tariffs currently is at historic highs. We've talked about this in a couple prior episodes, but we're in excess of 20% tariffs for the first time since 1910. These tariffs don't even include the latest tariffs announced by the administration. And those tariffs affect things like copper and pharmaceuticals, so huge, important sectors. And if those tariffs go into effect, experts expect inflation to rise even more. The real challenge here is that the Fed has a really tough choice. They can cut rates, and that will risk more inflation, or they can try to leave rates where they are, and that might reduce the amount of growth that we get. So it's a tough job, and it's likely to stay pretty hectic for the Federal Reserve, especially given the fact that they're under a lot of pressure from the administration. But it's definitely a Hobbesian choice.